as I turned 30, I really found myself getting lost within that. I felt like I didn't have any purpose. So I reluctantly closed the business and went back to the 9 to 5, which I really didn't want to do.
Wow.
And I think a lot of people, as I did, as I probably still do now to some extent, you identify yourself as your job. I'm an estate agent, I'm a florist, I'm an entrepreneur. This is who I am. And when that gets taken away, I don't know, you just have this massive sense of loss. Like, who am I?
When you're having a difficult time, and there's always a silver lining, or a moment of disappointment can also be a moment of opportunity.
Yeah.
Like, it's great when you're not the one in the situation. But when somebody says that, it's a bit like, it's actually harder when you're in the moment of disappointment to then think, oh, this is a moment of opportunity.
Yeah. And I remember one day, I'd say maybe a week later, waking up. And I had set up an Instagram, like I said, for the business. Well, for the passion, because at the time it wasn't a business.
It was a passion project.
Yeah. And I remember waking up and my Instagram was just like, my phone was vibrating away. Like,
on the back of this Vogue shoot.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Magnify Conversations. My name's Rachel and I'll be your host today. As a team, we have been thrilled to put out this content on relationships, money, career, and faith. And we know it's been a real benefit to our community so far. So if you're new here, welcome. The best thing you can do is subscribe to this YouTube channel so more women can benefit from all of this wisdom and value-adding content. But without further ado, let's get into this conversation.
Ladies, welcome to the Magnify Conversations. Very excited to be having a conversation today all around your stories. And I guess the thing of like knowing what's next after you lose a job, or just big changes in our career, which we know definitely have an impact on us, even when we don't want them to. But I'd love you both to introduce yourselves first, just so we've got a bit of an idea who you are.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Lizzie. I'm a creative and social media strategist. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here today and to chat to you both about my journey.
Yeah, can't wait to hear it.
And I'm Jenny, the founder of Kanku Floristry, which is a luxury florist.
Oh, nice. Oh, sounds very exciting. We're going to start with a bit of an icebreaker. We love to do this because it just, this can often become quite the comedy in itself. Anyway, let's start. We're going to do unpopular opinions. So it's agree or disagree. And you feel free to give a headline on why you agree or disagree. So we're going to start with this. Rock the eyebrows you were born with. Agree or disagree?
Ooh, disagree.
Ooh, yeah.
Because the eyebrows need to be on fleek.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was born with really faint eyebrows, so I have to pencil them on and do a thing.
Yeah, I'm with Jenny on this.
Yeah.
I think we all need a little bit of help, don't we, sometimes?
I agree. I mean, some people just have the most naturally luscious, dark eyebrows. Like for me, they're so sparse. Plus, I'm the kind of person that in 2003 had the skinniest eyebrows ever. And it felt like they just couldn't grow back by themselves.
Yeah.
So I don't actually touch them now, bar like filling them in and like sticking them up with brow gel. So I also agree with that. The next one is this. In-person shopping trumps online shopping. Agree or disagree?
Ooh. I'll sit on the fence with that.
Yeah, same.
I'll
It's
sit on the
circumstantial.
fence. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the convenience of online shopping, but I like that personal one-on-one where you can actually go into a shop and feel the material and try things on. Does it work for me? That sort of thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I'm on the
I'm
fence.
with you on this as well. I think there's nothing worse than last minute Christmas shopping with everyone else.
Yeah.
There's something so nice about just being at home, scrolling on Zara, whatever it might be. But equally, sometimes you've just got to try something on, haven't you?
Online is convenient and there's help. Like sometimes you just need next day, you can't get out.
Yeah.
But I mean, generally, if I was going to buy like a special piece or whatever, I do enjoy the thing of going shopping. But yeah, it depends on the time of year. It's circumstantial. Right, the next one is this. Accessories are more important than the actual clothing.
Ooh.
Agree or
Lizzie?
disagree?
I think an accessory can make an outfit, but someone's probably going to see your outfit first. Before your accessories, aren't they? So yeah, it's a tricky one.
Yeah.
I agree. With the question.
Yes.
I think accessories do make an outfit.
Yeah.
Because I feel like sometimes you can wear something that's quite plain, I don't know, something black, something white, but then if you've got, I don't know, a gold earring, for example, Just make
Case
it
in
pop.
point.
Yeah. Or on the other hand, it could be that you wear something that's quite extravagant with lots of colours, and
Yes.
you need accessories that are scaled back. So I
Toned
think
down.
accessories, do make the
I
outfit.
think I don't know if I agree or disagree, but I think definitely the accessories pull things together, and
Yeah.
it can be too much, it can be not enough, and like just
Yeah.
a change in accessory can change the whole
The whole
look.
outfit, yeah.
Definitely, I think we all agree that they're important. Well, ladies, I am really excited to have this conversation and get some of your perspectives. But the first thing, I guess, is just why is it important that we're even having this conversation today? What do you think, Lizzie?
Yeah, so for me, actually, on the way here, I was reading one of the old magazines, and on the front cover, it just said, vulnerability is your strength. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's really powerful, because I think actually it can be really hard to be vulnerable with our own struggles. And for me, going through entrepreneurship and redundancy, and having to shut down my business and also losing a job, I think there can be a lot of shame around that. And I'm really keen to kind of tell my own story and hopefully inspire a few other women that are going through the same thing.
Yeah, so important. How about you?
Yeah, just to echo what Lizzie said, I think it's really important to share your story. We're not the only ones that have been through this. We're not the only ones that are going to go through this. But I feel like at the time when you are facing redundancy, when you are starting up a company, being an entrepreneur, you can feel very alone. So it's important to share, just to let people know that they're not alone. Yeah.
And I think for me, it's important just for that reason that this is just so common, especially when you're in a job that you love. And maybe you're in a job that you love, but you felt it was time to pivot and do something else. So I think it impacts so much of the Magnify community as well. And especially redundancy, I guess we always maybe think it's something that's not really going to happen to us. And then when it does, it's a little bit, right, what's next? So yeah, I'm excited about that. Well, I'd just love to hear both of your kind of working experiences and journeys. I know they've been similar, but maybe happening at different times. And so even just to, as the foundation of the conversation, if we can just talk a little bit about, your stories and where they began and where you are now.
Sure. Yeah, so I actually did a music degree at university, so like over a decade ago now. And then I fell into marketing, as one often does. I ended up working on the John Lewis magazine, which is just like such a dreamy job.
Right.
But it was 2017. It was the year of the girl boss and millennial pink. And I really just like ended up falling onto that trend. And I just...
And what do you mean when you say you were falling onto that trend?
It
Like,
was just
you
like,
were that.
I wanted that.
Right.
I wanted I wanted to be a girl boss. Like I really wanted to build this incredible business. So I just quit my job without a real plan, which I would not recommend to anyone. But I was very fortunate to be living at home at the time. So I kind of could do that. But I was completely self-taught. So I was doing photography and videography for female founders at the time. And I just taught myself everything I know now. So it was like school of YouTube.
What inspired you to do that? Is it just something you were passionate about?
Yeah, I love doing it in my spare time. And I was just really passionate about it, about telling people stories, particularly with women. So that's where I started. And I did that for a few years before COVID hit. And that's when, obviously there was so much change and everything pivoted a bit more online. So then it was, for me, more of like the marketing piece, a lot more of the social strategy. But as I turned 30, I really found myself getting lost within that. I felt like I didn't have any purpose. So I reluctantly closed the business and went back to the 9 to 5, which I really didn't want to do.
Wow.
Because, after you've had the autonomy and freedom of being your own boss, it's quite hard to sort of go back to, a full-time role. So that in itself was a struggle, because there was a lot of like interviews that weren't going anywhere and presentations and endless just, 5th stage rounds. And it was, that was really tough. And then amazingly, I got this incredible role at a wellness company, which was, for me, was a real dream job. And I found I had that stability again. But it was very short-lived in that 9 months later, I got made redundant out of nowhere. And I had to figure out what I was going to do again. And I found myself kind of in that lost state again. So that was really challenging.
What are some of the emotions and feelings that you were having at that time when, I guess you'd obviously made a jump and it was like a really kind of brave, courageous thing. It's something that you're passionate and love to do, but then coming to the point and the realization of this isn't working and I'm going to have to kind of, did it feel to you like you were taking a massive backward step? Did you ever have the thoughts of like, I should have never left my original job or not? Were you like glad that you'd done it, but you just saw it as a season change?
At the time closing my business, there was a lot of heartache around that. There was a lot of shame because, you don't want to fail in business, obviously not. But I'd closed, I was confident in my decision by that point. I was just like, I want to get so far away from this. Right. I'm ready to be in a stable job. I'm ready to have some sleep at night and not be worrying about business. So for me, I'd made peace with it. So it was actually like losing the job that was like very confusing because I thought that's where I was meant to be. So that was really tough.
Yeah. And then coming to, I mean, we'll dig more into it, but even arriving like at the joy of the new job of like a wellness company, did you feel like that, okay, this is quite a long-term step at that point? Were you thinking, I can see myself staying here and like building for a while?
I think so. I loved the company and it was a really dream role for me. I learned a lot. So I think because it was just so unexpected to lose my job, that was what was confusing. Is like I felt like God had given me the job because everything else prior to that had been such a slog. Like it was, I was getting rejected left, right, and centre, and then that role literally came out of nowhere. Like I think I had like an initial call on the Friday, and then like by the end of the following week I'd got the job, and it was so easy. So then for that to fall away was just very confusing.
Yeah, and we can come back to that definitely. But Jenny, how about you? Like your story with just work and employment and going from like redundancy to like starting a business and all that kind of thing.
So I'd been an estate agent for 5 years. Managed to work my way up, and I had left the previous company that I was with and started a new role as an estate agent just before the pandemic hit. So that was 2019, I'd say, the back end of 2019. And for me, that was the dream job. This was my forever job kind of thing. It was a job that I could see myself being in long term. It gave me the opportunity to grow a team. And within, I'd say, 4 months of being in the job and doing really well, the pandemic hit and I got put on furlough.
Right.
2 months after that, I was then made redundant. And
did you see it come in? Like with the pandemic, when you were on furlough, were you thinking, right, this is going in the direction of redundancy? Or were you just thinking, you know what, we'll be on furlough for a while? I feel like the mentality towards the pandemic, definitely in the UK for a bit, was, oh, this is going to be a 6-week thing.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I feel like it's most people's mentality was, this is going to be a few weeks and then we'll all be back to normal. Well, clearly it wasn't, and it was a lot more serious than that. But even from a work perspective, were you thinking, I need to jump or I need to get out? Or was it just, you know what, it'll turn around and we'll...
I think for me, it was more so that a lot of people were put on furlough, and I thought, oh, okay, if this has happened, it's a terrible thing. We're on furlough and the government are going to help us. They're going to sort us out. So surely the last thing that a business person would want to do is get rid of all the employers because, like you said, we all thought that the pandemic would just blow over. It'll be a few months, 6 weeks, whatever it might be, and we'll all go back to normal. So when I was actually made redundant, it was kind of like, well, what now? What happens now? Like, what do I do? This is all I've known. And I think at that stage as well, we all kind of realised how serious the pandemic actually was, and this wasn't going to be something that was just going to blow over. So during that time, I started thinking deep, like, what am I going to do? What's my plan? I can't go back and be an estate agent because being an estate agent, involves going out and meeting the public. I need the public to do my job.
So at that point for you, when you got the news about the redundancy, what were like the feelings you had then? Because it's already a really difficult time. I think for most people, it was difficult, and there's concerns over work and earnings and cost and things like that. What was that like for you?
It was, I think initially it was a shock. And then it was this feeling of just being lost. It's like, what happens now? What do we do? What do I do? And on top of that, you've got the pandemic. And I think a lot of people, as I did, as I probably still do now to some extent, you identify yourself as your job. I'm an estate agent, I'm a florist, I'm an entrepreneur. This is who I am. And when that gets taken away, I don't know, you just have this massive sense of loss. Like, who am I? What do I now do? And on top of that, having a career, having good jobs, it gives you stability, but it gives you a routine.
Yeah.
And once
we
that
often
routine,
forget that part of it. We just think about the financial
so
thing,
true.
because that's huge. But we often forget about just the day-to-day in the
day-to-day
week or at the
stuff,
weekend. This is what I do and this is how it works.
Yeah.
That can be quite debilitating.
It was, definitely. It's this massive sort of sense of loss, in the sense of I've actually physically lost this job. Loss in the sense of I've potentially lost who I am. This is the job that I do. This is who I am. And I don't know, it just threw up a lot of questions for me, a lot of questions around my faith. Why did this happen to me? Quite sad to say, but I think I almost went into victim mode. Like, why did this happen to me? I've worked so hard. I deserve this. Why did I get fired? Why did I get made redundant? What about the others? Sort of thing. And I think it was a time when I did a lot of soul searching. I think a lot of people did as well during the pandemic. A lot of people, because all the distractions were taken away, it gave you time to just slow down. It gave us all time to think about what's really important. I know a lot of people moved back with family, back with parents. And what didn't help with me was that at the time, I'd not long gone through quite a traumatic breakup. So I had moved back with parents. And it's quite funny because looking back on it now, I realise that was a blessing in disguise, because I needed that support system.
Yeah, that's time.
I needed to be around my family. But I think, it was facing redundancy. It's not easy. It's really not easy. But on the other foot, as one door closes, another one opens. So as much as there was a huge sense of loss, in the back of my mind somewhere was, okay, what happens next? There was that sort of, I don't know.
Yeah, a little bit of anticipation maybe as well.
Yeah.
I think as much as we don't want to think that we are our job, you know, especially we want to say, we don't like having labels on us. This is what we are. This is what we're not. We're multifaceted. It's very hard not to feel like some of our identity at least is in our work. And especially when it's something we do that we love, or that we're really passionate about, or that we've just invested so much of our energy into. In your role at the time, do you feel like you'd really thrown yourself into that as a career as well? Like you were doing your best, you were doing everything you could, extra, working hard, going the extra mile?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, being an estate agent, it's not for the faint-hearted. It's long hours. It's very target-driven. So you do have to invest, and you have to sacrifice a lot of your own personal time to build yourself, to build a career for yourself. And a lot of the times being an estate agent is commission-based. So you get, the harder you work, the more you get paid. So you do have that sort of driving force behind you.
That kind of thing of just even investing all that time into something and then feeling like, hang on a minute, I'm coming away with nothing. Like for me, the sacrifice that you make in certain roles or in certain seasons of life, I suppose you ultimately expect some payoff, that everything that you sacrificed it's worth it. We want to feel, especially when it's like, maybe relationships are challenging or whatever, finances are challenging. We want to feel like, I've worked really hard, I've put this in, but it's okay, because in the end,
you're going to get something back.
That'll pay off. And I'm interested as well, Lizzie, for you, like in the mix of your kind of leaving the job, doing the entrepreneur thing and having to come away from that, in terms of some of the sacrifices you made to go into entrepreneurship, when you were coming away from it, what were your feelings around that? I mean, you said there was a lot of shame in that, but in terms of the sacrifice, were you having that monologue of, I've given up a lot?
Totally,
this.
So for me, it was really around the time that I was turning 30. And, that's such a milestone, I think, particularly for women. I wasn't married. I didn't have a property. I was living at home. So for me, my business was like everything. I really tied my identity to it. And I think that was part of my downfall. It meant that I wasn't perhaps investing in the best way into the relationships around me, because I just wanted to work. And when I had to close that, it was like, well, what have I been doing for the last 5 years? All my friends around me have built these incredible careers, and I don't really have anything to show for it. So it was really, really tough, because it felt like I'd done that to myself. And that was, yeah, I felt very lost in that moment, and particularly during, you know, the lockdowns when it was just such a dark time. So to have that as well was really tough.
Yeah, on top of it. And how did you begin to start to process some of those emotions? Because there's so many people who go through this kind of thing. Either they're going through a redundancy or they start a business and it doesn't work out. Like so many people that we speak to here, it's like, you know, they might be loving what they're doing now, but it's like there's been 10, 12 attempts of different things that you've had to dust back off and go, I'm going to try again. Like, how did you practically begin to process all of those feelings and emotions in a healthy way?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it wasn't easy, but I think that's where you can really benefit from having like an incredible community around you. You know, so many people around you, particularly in the church, that are just very wise and able to sort of mentor you through that. But I think also I definitely leaned in more on God. It did take a while. It wasn't easy, but I got to a place where I was like, okay, well, God, I'm relying on you. So, you know, whatever you've got for me, I'm ready for it.
Yeah, absolutely. How about you? So that time you were saying it was so difficult, Jenny, for you, like at that point, you're just like, right, what do I do now? So many questions. But how did you begin to process those difficult emotions?
Yeah. I think with the pandemic, as I said, it was a time when we all slowed down. And because everything was, in essence, sort of scaled back, you couldn't go out, you couldn't meet your friends, you couldn't do this, you can't do that. It's a time where you just, I think we all did to some extent, we all sat back and reflected on what's important to me, what do I enjoy doing? And floristry was my passion.
Right. Were you doing that on the side?
No, I wasn't. No. I'd always bought flowers and whenever I'd buy a bouquet, I would rearrange it, do my own thing and put it on the table. And whenever friends would come over, they'd be like, oh, this is nice. This looks different to what I'd normally buy. And it was just something that I'd say I dabbled in on the side. It was just something that I enjoyed doing. I didn't think much of it, and that was that sort of thing. And it's quite funny because as we were going through lockdown, I read a lot during lockdown. And I remember once I was on my emails and this email popped up, but it wasn't quite an email. It was a spam mail that appears as an email, and it actually said ad next to it. And I knew better, like, I know that's not an email. But I clicked on it and it was for this online floristry course, more the theory of floristry. And I thought, oh, okay, there's not much happening. I might as well do that. So I signed up for it, paid for it, and I actually started doing the course online. And it's quite funny because, like I said, I knew it wasn't an email, but for some reason I clicked on it. For some reason, I then went on and did this course. And as I was doing the course, I was like, oh, I enjoy this. I actually am enjoying this. Completed the course, passed it. And I just thought to myself, I'm going to start buying more flowers. And I think during lockdown, a lot of people were doing home renovations and buying plants and buying flowers for the home. And I was one of those that started buying flowers and making my own bouquets. And I remember I would make stuff and post it on Instagram. And funnily enough, my arrangements got spotted by quite a high-profile individual who works for Vogue at the time. And she was like, oh my God, I love your flowers. What do you do? What's this about? And I told her my story. She was like, oh my God, they're so cool. And that was that. And I remember at the time feeling very lost. And I remember I was sat one night and I read the Bible. And I just remember just surrendering everything to God. I was like, God, why is this happening? Like, it's bad enough that we're in a pandemic, but I've now lost my job. Like, what happens next? Whatever you have in store for me, I leave it with you. And it was almost from a sense of desperation. It was almost from a sense of a place of like, I've got nothing else.
Right,
I literally have nothing else. My option now. And it's quite funny because 2 weeks after that, I then got a call from this high-profile individual who said, look, I'm doing a shoot. It's very low-key. I think at the time it was still social distancing. I'd love for you to provide me with a few bouquets and we'll do the shoot. And that's that. And I was like, okay.
And you hadn't like launched a business there.
No.
You hadn't like written a business plan or anything. It's
nothing
just,
at all.
You'd kind of thought, oh, I'm going to do this course and I'm enjoying doing this. And you were showing it a little online.
It was literally that. There was no plan of turning it into a business. Nothing at all. And then, so I met with this person, did the bouquets, put it out. We took a few pictures and I thought, okay, that was fun. And that was that. And I remember one day, I'd say maybe a week later, waking up, and I had set up an Instagram, like I said, for the business. Well, for the passion, because at the time it wasn't a business.
It was a passion project.
Yeah. And I remember waking up and my Instagram was just like, my phone was vibrating away. Like,
on the back of this Vogue shoot.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right.
But I didn't realise it was that.
Right.
Because to me, it was just,
Yeah.
right, I've done some flowers, they sat in the back of the shoot, and that's that.
amazing, yeah.
And I remember looking at my phone, I was like, whoa, what's happening here? And I saw that she'd done she posted the flowers along with the shoot and had actually tagged me and wrote a bit about me. And I was like, wow. And in the back of my mind, something just said to me, this is what I'm giving you.
Wow.
Because I remember praying and saying, look, I've got nothing. Like, whatever you want to do with me, do it. God, do it. I'll leave it with you. And when I saw that, I was like, all I heard in the back of my mind was like something saying, this is what I'm giving you. And I remember feeling so confused. I was like, what?
What is this then?
Floristry? Is this the route that I'm supposed to go down?
So
Like,
dramatically different from what you were doing.
and from then on, I thought, okay, let's see where this goes. Let's see what this could potentially lead to. And again, did the same sort of thing, started making arrangements, posting them on Instagram. And I would say it's only favour. With time, I just started getting more traction.
Yeah.
More and more traction. And yeah, here we are today.
And yeah, and obviously, and it's a bit. I do feel it's a bit twee when people say this. When you're having a difficult time, and there's always a silver lining, or a moment of disappointment can also be a moment of opportunity.
Yeah.
Like, it's great when you're not the one in the situation, but when somebody says that, it's a bit like, it's actually harder when you're in
So
the moment
true.
of disappointment to then think, oh, this is a moment of opportunity.
Yeah.
And I guess for you that. It kind of happened. You just started to exercise your passion a little bit.
Yeah.
And also, I'm interested because you've kind of had opposite
Yeah.
stories going the
Yeah.
opposite way around in terms of a timeline, if that makes sense. So for you, Lizzie, like what are you working in now, and like what are you doing now? I'm interested of like coming from like losing your job then and being redundant to going right.
Where do I go to now?
What's next?
Yeah.
Like what were the steps between there in those moments of disappointment? Like how did you move to the next opportunity?
So I think I am a bit of an eternal optimist.
Right.
So I was like, oh, this is fine. Like, it will be fine. But the reality of being unemployed after, like, it gets old very quickly.
What was the like time period that you were unemployed for? then?
It was probably about 4 or 5 months that I was job hunting. And I think at the time the market was especially bad. Like, everyone was just like, yeah, there's no jobs. And I think you can get in your own head a bit about it. So it really wears you down when you've done so many interviews and, you've got to do presentations and like speak to so many different people. So yeah, again, that was a time where I was like, God, like, what have you got for me? I don't have anything left. Like, I give it all to you, and I just pray for your will to be done. And then this incredible role, again, just came out of nowhere. It was such a God thing, I think. And an old friend from church from years ago just got in touch and was like, hey, are you freelancing still? Like, what are you up to at the moment? Because we'd really love some help on some of our social stuff. And I was like, yes, I'm free. So yeah, I had a call with the boss and literally started like a few days later. It wasn't even an interview. It was so easy. And I've always felt like when it's easy, it's God. So I'm still doing that at the moment. I'm really like loving the work. It's incredible. It's really fulfilling. Like, we're working with a lot of different charities. It's very different to what I've done in the past, but it's actually the perfect mix because I'm still, I still have sort of time freedom, but also I've got the stability of a small team and kind of I'm not working directly with, sourcing clients and making sure the bills are paid. So yeah, it's just been fantastic. I'm really enjoying it.
And from like that kind of time where you'd stepped out and started your own business, with those, the things you've just noted is like, sourcing clients, like that kind of, you've got a team, maybe you love that side of it, but all the mechanics of business, looking back, do you feel like, I didn't enjoy that?
Not necessarily. I think I enjoyed it initially in the first few years, but I really lost my way. And that's when I was like, I think when you lose sight of your vision, you're not necessarily enjoying the work anymore, everything else just feels 10 times harder. So, I wasn't enjoying the highs as much, because I think that's one big thing, as I'm sure you know, Jenny, like there's a lot of highs and lows. So you've got to be happy with both. And I was just so over not having any stability.
Right.
So I didn't miss that as much, but that's not to say I wouldn't be open to it again. I think it's more just about feeling really passionate about what I'm doing and feeling fulfilled.
Yeah, because then the other things become a necessity that like for a time I'm going to be doing this, this and this until I get someone to help me, or that's just part of my role. Like you accept that's part of being a founder. I think it was so interesting, Jenny, what you said about not just when you're made redundant, not just losing finances and sometimes like your friendships and going out to work or whatever, but actually your day-to-day routine. And that's so interesting from your story as well, that you had a 4 or 5 month period on the back of that redundancy where you're working really hard to find another job. What was that like for you, just in your own, like, I guess, emotional and mental health over that period of time? Because you're working hard to get a job, but then you've actually lost probably a lot of your stability in terms of your routine.
Yeah, absolutely. So my previous role, I was in an office 5 days a week. Right. So then to be at home every day, I'm not necessarily someone that just twiddles their thumbs all day. I'm quite proactive, but it's just, I think it felt like Groundhog Day after a while, because like every day is like, right, job applications and like getting nowhere. So it does take its toll. And I think just being mindful of that as well, you do feel like you're in limbo a little bit. So I just found it really helpful to talk to other people that have maybe been going through the same thing and try and lean into my community a bit more. But what it did allow me, which is one of the silver linings, is it allowed me a lot more time with God. So I always try to start my day just being like sat in silence and trying to listen a bit more, because when you're in a 9 to 5 or any kind of job, you're rushing around, you don't necessarily have that time. And I was very time rich at the time. So, I had that space to be like, okay, God, like, let's have a chat.
Yeah, starting the day well as well. I guess in that time you were establishing your own routine in the meantime. It doesn't mean it's easy, but I think we, especially, for women who are going through redundancy or just a period where they're unsure of what's happening with their work, having that routine is so key. I think for most people, I'm not sure most people like to wander through the days. Not that they're not doing anything, but there has to be some kind of
it gives you
a level of predictability and purpose. How about you in that period between redundancy and starting the floristry work and everything? Did you have some set things for your week that you're like, I'm gonna do this? I mean,
I did.
and guess were you looking for a job in that time as well?
Well, it's quite funny because I was and I wasn't. I was looking for another job in a estate agency, but because I had had that time where things were quiet and I was able to reflect on what I actually enjoy doing, I was like, look, am I actually sure that I do want to go back to my estate agency job where I'm running around and things are so busy that I don't have any time for myself, my family? And one of the things that I would often do, as you said, Lizzie, is go out in the morning and go for a walk and try to get some sort of sun as I'm walking. And I remember once walking to my local park and just sitting down on a bench and thinking, right, okay, this is crunch time, Jenny. Are you actually going to look for another job? Because something's got to give. Are you actually going to look for another job, or are you actually going to pursue this floristry full time? And I remember sitting there, and it was so random. I was sat on a bench. It just started raining. Sounds like a scene from a film, actually. I was sat on the bench, it just started raining. And I remember saying, like, God, whatever this thing is that you've given me, and I believe it was given to me by God, whatever this thing is that you've given me, take it and do what you want with it. It's yours, it's not mine. And by the time I'd got home, I had decided that I was going to pursue a floristry. And I remember just thinking, this thing's not mine. It's the will of God. I need his favour. Only he's going to be able to make it something. And so from then I was like, right, okay, it's going to be a business. It needs an official name. And from there, I just started building.
Obviously, you're both Christian women, and you've both spoken a bit about your own faith journeys in the middle of like redundancy and starting again and finding a new job. And I think it can be something that's talked about a lot in faith circles, which is like praying for God to close doors and open doors. And I think you both clearly believe that's the reality as well. And so do I. Yeah. But I think it's one thing us saying, God, I'm okay with you closing a door because I know you'll open more doors. And it's kind of different to be in the reality of the middle of it and being like, oh, a door's closed. I'm not sure I can see an open door. And you were both kind of in that situation. So what are your thoughts around that? Like the reality of being near a closed door when it's just closed?
Yeah. I think when a door does close, I think having faith has taught me to stand steady during times of confusion, doors closing. And a lot of people say time's a healer, but time really is a healer. A lot of times when you have an issue, if you just almost take yourself out of that situation and just hold fire and wait and listen, sometimes the problem just solves itself.
Yeah, I would say it's such a tough prayer, but it's really my favourite one. It's like, God, I just pray that you would open the right doors and close the wrong ones. And that can be really painful. Like you can be going through something that you don't want to end, or, you know deep down what you might need to do, but you just don't want to go that route. So for me, I found that prayer to be really helpful because often it does happen. And God will close that door, and it can be really painful. And I think disappointment is part of faith. It's not all sunshines and roses, unfortunately, but that's why, we're Christians and we believe in God, and it's because we have to rely on that faith and in what God's got for us. And it always reminds me of that verse, Jeremiah 29, verse 11, where it's like, I know the plans for you to prosper, to give you hope. And so when those doors do slam in our face, and sometimes it is a slam, it's just that reminder of like, there's better things coming.
Yeah.
And it's actually living into that and not just saying it in a time where it feels like all the doors are open and we're happy that the doors are open and they're not closed. Yeah. But it's like, say it's a difficult, or maybe it's an easy prayer to pray, but it can be difficult in the reality. But you're right. Where does that actually become real? It's in those moments where, okay, the doors are shut. Okay, that's maybe where we have to rely. Well, it's definitely where we have to rely on God. And another thing I've found as well with just driven, ambitious women, and I'm exactly the same. We like a plan, even if we're not a super plan person. Like it's nice that the stability and kind of the next step and being clear and having clarity on things is a thing. But then life's not really like that for the most part. Did you ever have a temptation, like with those doors shutting, to make a bit of a knee-jerk reaction? So, like when you were made redundant, or when doors have closed, or your business has come to an end, have you ever just thought, right, I'll just do this straight away? And I don't know if you thought that or not, but if you did, how did you stop yourself from just kind of reacting rather than responding to what had happened?
I think, to be honest, I just couldn't make a knee-jerk reaction. Like it felt like there were a lot of doors closing around me. And all I had was that time and space to reflect and be like, God, where do you want me? Because I'd been through that kind of job difficulty before. I'd, had to close a business, and now I was facing this redundancy. So I was like, right, I've been here before. I know that space is what's needed, and actually listening to God and where he wants me to be is so important right now. So I think having gone through it the first time, you learned, exactly. And I can look back and be like, that was a huge failure. Or I can look back and be like, actually, I learned a lot in that period. I really grew. And maybe that enabled me to go through the right steps after my redundancy. So for me, it was, I almost didn't have space to make any quick decisions.
It wasn't like that. How about you, Jenny, in the middle of that? Did you feel tempted, like in those times between being made redundant and starting your business? And obviously that was kind of you didn't know you were going to do it, but it's sort of unfolded. Did you have the temptation just to make a knee-jerk reaction?
I'd say no. As you said, Lizzie, I know I keep referring back to the pandemic, but that's when everything happened for me. Because it was a time of silence and it was a time of stillness, that's when the most happened for me. So anytime something potentially would happen to cause me to have a knee-jerk reaction, I would almost bring myself back to the point of being quiet and listening out for God, and almost praying that God would lead my steps and would show me what needs to be done, or show me why this door has been closed, or potentially just close one door with no explanation and open another one. So I think it very much taught me to just be still and be in the moment and just listen out. Yeah.
I assume you both now seem quite content where you are and feel like you are where you're meant to be, at least for this time. So how do you really, just practically, how do you really dig into that and give that your focus while still kind of holding it with an open hand and holding it loosely, knowing from your experience that, not out of fear, but that life can change and it can ebb and flow different ways, and that's okay. And you can even end up in a better place than you were before. How do you give it your focus without that, I guess, that nervousness or anxiety to just be like, it's going to be taken away?
I think a lot of it has to do with faith and trust, because for me, this business came about from nothing. It's been God-given to me. So now that I have something, I fully entrust it with God. It's like, you do what you want with it. This is yours. You've built it from nothing.
And you think as well, because you didn't just have this big idea around it. It's almost like it began to happen as you just took those small steps.
And I remember at the time, one of the podcasts that I was listening to said something along the lines of, start walking and the path will appear. As you take one step and another. It's like, when you're driving on a country road, for example, you don't ever fully see the road that you're driving on, but your headlights illuminate the path that you actually need to go on. And before you know it, you're further down and you see a bit more and a bit more. So I think with the fact that this has started from nothing, I fully trust it to God. I'm quite comfortable in having it, but yet leaving my hands open to getting more, because if your hands are closed, then you won't.
It's
you're not able to attract and get more.
It's good.
Yeah, I really resonate with that, and I think as someone that's sort of had things taken away from me very quickly and then given to me very quickly, I'm really comfortable in knowing my worth through God rather than through these jobs and businesses. And it's taken a while to get to that point, but I feel like now I can lean into that, and I know that the job I'm doing now could be taken away next week, but that's okay, and I'll figure it out, because God's plan is better than what I want for my life. But it's only through going through those challenging times that I've realised that I can find peace in his plan.
Yeah, so helpful. Well, as part of this conversation, we have some of our Magnify community just send in their questions all around this topic. As we know, it's a real prevalent topic. So we're going to do like a couple of audience dilemmas. If you're happy to help us with an answer.
I'll give it a go.
Yes. Yeah, so the first one is this. I was just made redundant from the perfect job that I really felt like God had for me. This sounds so similar to you. Everything seemed to be falling into place after leaving a really toxic work environment. I was aligned with the company values. The team seemed like the perfect fit, and even the location of the new office is a short journey from where I live. I've still got rent to pay and additional expenses, and I'm struggling to understand why I've been led to a place of financial lack when I was so certain that I had to take this leap of faith and now feel embarrassed. I was so excited to tell my family, friends about the good news. And then I dread going back home knowing that I've disappointed myself and my parents. How can I deal with these feelings and gain a positive outlook?
Yeah, I really resonate with a lot of that. I think, first of all, there is absolutely no shame in your situation. And being made redundant, it happens to so many people. Jenny and I both have been through that. So many other women have as well. So yeah, I would just really try and reassure this person that it's so common and there's absolutely no shame. But that being said, you can often find yourself, you feel like you've got this incredible role and God's put you there, and it can be taken away very quickly. But I think, for me, I know that reflecting on that and knowing that there's something better for me, there's a reason that happened, and just being, feeling really reassured in that. I know it's difficult, but I found it really helpful to surround myself with community, with other people that had been through the same thing, and just talking it out.
Yeah. Any thoughts?
I think it's also important to actually take the time and be kind to yourself. I think of all time, self-care is most important when you are going through things like this, so that you can almost sort of bring it back to basics, where you do things to make yourself feel good. Like, I don't know, like little things like have a bath, go for a walk, be kind to yourself. And take time. Honestly, take the time. And I think it's only once you're in silence, once you slow down a bit, that you can actually hear God's voice and you can potentially hear what's in store for you and why this has happened. It's not every time that something happens that you get an explanation for it. So there might not need to be a reason why it happened. It just wasn't for you. And that's okay.
So taking the time.
Take your time. Take your time.
Really helpful. I've got another one, if that's okay. So it says, my friend's just been made redundant from a job that she loved. I've never seen her so happy in her work, and it's a job she had worked really hard for. We both prayed it would happen for her. And when she told me she'd been made redundant, I couldn't believe it. It's been heartbreaking to see her in this position. We're both in our 30s, so she said she feels like she's got to start again and doesn't really know where to begin. I really want to be able to support her at this time, but I don't want to push her to look for something else if it's too soon. But equally, I know she's a solution-orientated person, so this could also help. I just love some suggestions as a friend, how I can be best be there for her.
Yeah, that's quite tough. I mean, I would maybe ask your friend, like, how can I show up for you? Rather than just assuming that, you know how to
exactly
show up. Where do you need me? What can I do to help you? But also just reassurance that they can still use the experience that they did gain in the role. And
I think that's such a great point, actually.
But also it's so, like, redundancy is so common. I know when I was interviewing, I always felt a little bit of shame around saying, I got made redundant, but like no one ever batted an eyelid. Like, it's so common. So, I'm sure there's so many other experiences that they might just need to pivot a little bit, but it's really not the end of the world. Like it feels like it at the time, as we both know, but actually there's always something better on the other side of it.
Really helpful.
I think something as simple as bringing it back to basics. I find that a lot of times your passion finds you.
Right. That's your story as well.
It is. I mean, it is. So maybe something possibly along the lines of doing something that you enjoy. That would make you feel good, and in turn would give you the confidence potentially to look for other things. Just bring it back to basics. Do things that make you feel good. Be with, like you suggested, Lizzie, be around a strong community that care for you. And see where things go.
I think maybe participating in that as a friend. So, just lining up your two pieces of wisdom and advice is asking what's going to be helpful. But then, hey, do you want to do a bit of this together? Should we go and... I think sometimes can be really helpful too. Ladies, this has been so good. Thank you so much for sharing your stories. As we're a community, we always ask right at the close of the conversation, are there any ways we can support what you're doing, or where can we find you online? Is there anything you want us to know about at the minute?
I think for me, I'm kind of back on Instagram. I've taken a bit of a break, but I'm back. I'm just really enjoying chatting through social media tips and content strategy. So come and have a chat with me. I love talking about all things strategy. So
wonderful.
Yeah, I'm at Lizzie Be Creative. So come and say hi.
Brilliant. Amazing. How about you, Jenny?
And for me, I'm on Instagram at Kanku Floristry. It'll be great to get some words of encouragement, because at the moment I think I'm going through a bit of a with Instagram, a love-hate relationship. But Kanku Floristry, it'll be great to say hi. Connect, yes.
Thank you so much, ladies. I really appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of the Magnify Conversations. We hope you've enjoyed it and found it really value-adding. If you're new to our community, or perhaps you just joined us for the first time today, we have an Instagram. Our handle is at Magnify Collective. You'll be able to find everything you need there to keep up to date with us. Next up, if you have a story that you would like to share on the Magnify Conversations, you can go on our website, magnifycollective.com, and share your story with us. We really look forward to seeing you for next week's episode on Monday.